Yo, what is up once again, everybody? How's it hanging? How's your life going? How's everything going? This is Kevin from the Chord. Wait, that didn't sound right. Let me do it again. The Chord Progression Podcast. Man, my voice is scratchy. Brought to you by My Song a Day, Rock 2008. What's going on, everybody? How's it hanging? Happy Tuesday to you once as well. It is Tuesday, August 6th? Shoot, I should know the dates. Yeah, Tuesday, August 6th. Hope everyone's having a good start to the week so far if you're listening to this, or whenever you're listening. So hope you're having a good week up to this point. Let's start out with, I've got no guest today, so you're going to get straight, no filter Kevin comments. But what kind of Kevin comments? Well, we had two albums that came out over the past week, or over the first weekend in August that I want to talk about. I'm going to go deep dive into both of them. We're going to go deep dive into Skillet's Victorious and Volbeat's Rewind, Replay, Rebound. And we're also going to talk about Tool as well. And then a little bit of extra stuff too. No guest today, so you're going to get a lot of me. But before we go, let's start off with the shameless plugs. So, of course, shameless plugs. This is the My Song Day Rock 2008 podcast, the Chord Progression Podcast, brought to you by My Song Day Rock 2008. I can't believe I keep messing that up. And on this podcast, if you've been on here beforehand, welcome back. If it's your first time, welcome. So what do we do here? We just talk all about music. Otherwise, if it's just me, I'll talk just straight about music, straight about life, and give you guys a lot of my own insights on certain things and topics. If I have a guest, say it's a guest from one of our fans. We do have our fans on here as well. We'll talk about music. We usually do music reviews, but I want to do this one by myself specifically. Or we talk to small bands. Like we've done interviews with Ascending from Ashes, Kingdom Collapse, Trivial Difference, the GFM, Gold, Frankincense, and Myrrh. And I know we got a couple other ones coming up down the pipeline as well. Total Eclipse was one of them too. I think that was last week's. But love having them on there because we do a thing called Small Band Series, which I'll get to later. But for all your great, best rock community on the internet needs, follow us on all our social media platforms like Facebook. You'll find out anything that goes on with us on Facebook. Twitter, we talk to you guys. And Instagram, we talk to you guys, find out what's going on. And then we also do things such as our IGTV videos, in which we give you more behind the scenes look, kind of what's in development. It's basically like a vlog, but like what's in development in my own head. And our Instagram live streams every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central, where you can come. You ask us questions, we answer them. And sometimes you can just come and have a conversation with us. It's always fun. So please join us. All the links and stuff in the description below. Also, follow us on our YouTube channel and subscribe to us on our YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Man, I keep messing that up. But subscribe to our YouTube channel, My Song a Day Rock 2000 today. That's where we have all those album reviews, sometimes band reviews, sometimes we answer questions, put bands together. We do a lot more long form video on there and a lot more deep dive look into certain things. But for the Skillet Victorious review, that's already up there. The Volbeat album review for Rewind, Replay, Rebound will come out the day after this podcast is released, so go check it out there. Talked about the Chord Progression Podcast right here already, so you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and on that YouTube channel as well if you're so interested. Last but most importantly, if you have an Amazon Alexa and you're not subscribed to our My Song Day Rock 2000 Today Alexa skill, what in the blue hell are you doing? That's where you can listen to all this stuff. You can listen to every single song a day that we have out there. It's a great way, get your morning going, get through the middle of the day, end the day, discover new bands you didn't know about, rediscover old bands, fall in love with new songs. So if you just click the link in the description below, say activate skill or enable skill and say, hey Alexa, play my song of the day. Alexa will then go, playing your song of the day. And then you'll get a 5-second intro from me. Then you'll hear the whole song. It's time. Once it's over, it's done. If you want to listen to it again, just say the exact same thing. Listen as many times as you want in a 24-hour span. And then once that's done, boom, brand new song. We also do a thing on Saturdays called Small Band Saturdays, where we feature smaller bands. And now on Instagram, what we've been doing for those is we've actually been taking a 30-second clip of their song and putting it on there as a video, give you guys more of a preview. I'm thinking about doing that for each one for the Song of the Days, but I got to make sure my licensing is still correct on that, and I'm having a little bit of complications in talking with ASCAP, BMI, and SCSAC at the moment to make sure I can do that, or what else I need to do to make sure I can do that. So just playing that one safe. So that'll come your way, just making the best experience for you guys. And because this is the Chord Progression Podcast, this is My Song a Day Rock 2008, this is all about you guys. So when it's all about you guys, we want to hear your opinions. We want to know what you think. But again, one thing we always have to remember when we're saying our opinions is everyone else has different opinions, and we just you gotta listen to them. You don't have to agree with them, but you just gotta listen to them. So I'm going to start out with that kind of as a precursor to talk about the Skillet album Victorious. Now, I was really looking forward to Victorious. I'll go through my full review of it, but then after I listened to it for about, 3 or 4 times, I was looking at what other people were saying about it, and it was a pretty mixed bag. And there were two people, or I would say more or less influencers online, influencers online, that had a different opinion than me. And one I respected, and one, after the actions I saw from them, I really didn't respect, but I will go into that after my full-on review of Victorious by Skillet. So let's jump right into it. Again, you can find all of this on YouTube as well if you want kind of the more just straight up and not hearing me ramble on version. So yeah, Skillet came out with their 10th album, Victorious, on August 2nd, and I listened to it, and one of my first reactions was, this is an absolute bonkers good album for my perspective. I really enjoyed it, basically because when I'm thinking about Skillet, I like when Skillet goes with those harder sounds. When I mean Skillet with the harder sound, I'm talking about what they've done on Comatose with songs like Rebirthing and Comatose. I really like what they did with Whispers in the Dark. You look at Awake, I like what they did with Monster and Awake and Alive. Rise, I really didn't care for that whole entire album at all, except my favorite Skillet song ever, Not Gonna Die, is featured on that album. And then on Unleashed, I really liked Feel Invincible, I should say, and The Resistance, and Back from the Dead. Now, I heard that Skillet was going to be going with a harder sound for this album, and that's where I got really excited, because I like when they go with that harder sound. It's something I really enjoy. And that's, again, to my own personal taste, because I have made a video reviewing their whole entire work, and I really didn't care a lot for their earlier stuff, just because it had a lot of that Christian rock influence in there. I'm not talking about, the lyrical content at all at this point. I'm talking about just the music, instrumentation, and that's something I really don't care for at all. And the context behind that is when I was younger, I did go to private Catholic school, and the teachers were always trying to get me to listen to that kind of stuff, and it's something that I didn't want to listen to because I was listening to Disturbed in middle school, and that's what I really liked. And of course, when you're in middle school, you're 12, you're 13 years old, and your teacher's going to try and get you to listen to Christian rock, you're going to naturally become apathetic towards that sound, and you're just going to want to go as far away from it as possible. So I really don't like that sound. There's the context for you guys. But when Skillet goes with that harder sound, like the songs I was mentioning, I really do enjoy it. So on this album, when they stuck with that almost consistently, I was a huge fan of it. And also, when it comes to this album, they are going to be sounding more hopeful than uplifting. So by that means it's kind of like dealing with a little bit of a darker subject matter, which I will get into, don't worry. I will get into that. And one of the biggest things I thought this album had going for it was that John and Corey Cooper, as you know, John Cooper, the frontman, lead singer, and bassist, along with Corey Cooper, rhythm guitar and keyboard, their husband and wife, they produced most of this track together. So let's go and jump right into it because it is hot where I'm doing this right now. Hot. And I'm already starting to sweat a little bit. I don't want to, pull any punches or anything. I'm going to give you the full-on thing. So let's start out with number one song on the album. To start out with, it was Legendary. This is the lead single, and when I was looking at the meaning of this song, it was diving deep into the fact that the band, as they were going through, their infancy to where they are now, a lot of people have said they could be a much bigger band if they completely ditch the Christian roots and stick with more of a hard rock sound. They're never willing to do that. It sounds like they are going more towards that hard rock sound, but keeping that Christian influence in there, which again is something I like, and I really like the way that they put that in a song. I do like how the music drives a lot like Feel Invincible, but it does sound like a rehashing of it at points. And the intro guitar work is something that's is really cool. I like how Jen mixes in with there a little bit, but overall, it just doesn't feel as fresh and is the weakest of the singles. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like the song. But I say weakest of the singles is because the other three singles that have come out before this one, I really, really do enjoy. Coming in at number 2 on the album was You Ain't Ready. This was the fourth and final single. I think it came out like a week before the album was released. All about, overcoming adversity and taking what has kept you down in life or has brought you down in life, taking the negatives and turning them into motivation to make something positive. Now, when it opened up, I thought it was something that really started out like something Back from the Dead did. So again, it's kind of like, it seems like they're kind of rehashing it, but again, I like the sound. I want to see where they're kind of going with it. But it overall had like this harder and grittier sound to it than other ones did on the album, or than what Back from the Dead did, which I really liked. I liked what they did there. Seth's guitar work here was very much harder and grittier. And then I thought it was something like, if I could compare it, like it was something that would be harder than what the guitar work was on Comatose or Awake albums. Now, I know Seth wasn't there for those albums, but I think the move here was correct. The one thing I really not necessarily sure on was at first was the fact that there was no Jen backup vocals in this one, but I thought that the move to not have her in here as a backup vocalist when it came to the harder sound, it worked. It worked. Let's go to number 3. We had this title song, Victorious. Initially, at first, just because of the way the strings were in the beginning of the intro, I like when they start out with introing strings like on Awake and Alive and Not Gonna Die, but this one took me right out of there. And as I listened to the song, it kind of made me feel like, at first, it's like this song is kind of about overcoming depression and kind of the fact that life is so much more worth living that you can overcome something that's like a silent battle within yourself. And it really gave me that kind of vibe. And I did like it mostly due to the fact that it was something that I have dealt with in the past. And when you've dealt with something in the past, they make a song like that and it's very hopeful. You really do resonate well with it. The Jen's much more much more featured on this track when it comes to her vocals, which again, fantastic move. Then I took a look at the meaning of the song and it kind of validated what I was feeling with it due to the fact that, as John Cooper had put it, this song, Victorious, really dove deep into Chester Bennington's death and how he dealt with it. And it made a lot of sense when they're talking about depression, dude. We all know what happened with Chester. Very unfortunate that it's only been 2 years. And it's amazing that the rock community is still rallying around that aspect, even though how tragic it was and how everyone is kind of coming around that and coming together and focusing more on mental health, because Disturbed really dove deep into that as well. And I like to see that Skillet has done that and that Chester's influence is still alive and well today. Number 4, this is The Kingdom. This one is where a lot of people who dislike the album, this is where they looked and they said, okay, I actually like this track. For me, this is where I said, whoa there, cowboy, I am not a fan of this one. So this is kind of where like the detraction came in. And it sounded like this like melodic power belt, and the intro sounded something that would come off of like Imagine Dragons when they made Believer, that track from their third album. And I just was not into it at all, just due to the fact that it really focused more on those like Christian rock themes and Christian rock stylings within the music. And I've talked about that beforehand. It's not something I'm a big fan of. I really have a rather distaste for it from, again, the context was growing up. And I just really did not care for this track. Every time this track comes on and listen to it, I usually skip past it because I don't care for it that much. And it just kind of just slows me down a little bit. So I was kind of a little bit scared coming up to this. So I'm like, through 4 songs, I liked 1, I liked 2 a lot. 3, it took a while, but it really grew me. And 4, I'm like, they're going harder. So can we keep that up, guys? Number 5 was the second single, which was Save Me. And this is the best single off the track, the second best song off of the track as well, because looking at what it is, again, looking at the message of it, it really goes deep into, fighting your own demons, fighting your own battles, and sometimes you need help to do that, and sometimes you need someone to turn to, and with it being Skillet, listening to the underlying tones, underlying message, it's the person you can always turn to is either God or Jesus, or whoever your religious savior might be. The song does have this darker tone to it, and it has a more ominous sound to it. I think a lot of that comes from the driving guitar from Seth, along with some of the vocals from John Cooper, and it just increases the intensity in the song, and it makes it a lot harder. This is something that I thought was like, this would be perfect off of the Comatose album, and I was a big fan of it, so Save Me, again, gives me a thumbs up. Rise Up came in at 6, and I was big on this one, mostly because I heard this song first back in March of 2019 when they were in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, doing their tour with Under Oath and Breaking Benjamin, and they previewed this one. This was the only song they played from this album that night, and they were like, yeah, this is something new, so we're going to give it to you. Granted, Jen was not with them at this point because she was doing her solo project tour, and I think they were just wrapping that up. So we had Lacey Sturm doing the vocals for that one. It hit hard, but it was lacking something, and the thing that was lacking when I listened to it now, Jen's vocals were definitely the one thing that were missing. Even though Lacey is a very talented vocalist, it's just the mixture of what Jen could do on this track was phenomenal. The driving drum beat that they created with her to kind of have this like it felt like it was something that came off of No More by Disturbed, what they did back in 2018. It had this pulse pounding beat. It was fantastic. I absolutely liked it. The mixture between the vocals, again, fantastic. The guitar work was a little bit more raw from both Corey and Seth, except there was a part in there where Seth kind of just took over a little bit with a little bit of a solo, and that little bit of a solo was fitting in very well. So this is my favorite track on the album, no doubt about it. Terrify the Dark came in at 7, and this was one where, again, I was split on this one with a lot of people that didn't really like the album, because this one kind of took a completely different turn. There are a lot of people that really liked this one. It really went heavy in with the Christian themes, because it is based off of a Bible verse, which is actually the meaning behind it. It's based on the fighting the darkness, which is evil, with the light, which is good. And when I saw Terrify the Dark, I thought you could have gone one of two ways. They could have gone, heavily based upon Christian rock, which they did. I wanted heavy hard rock Smoke Show. I didn't get that. I'm not the biggest fan of this track. I do totally respect the construction of the song, because I think it was well done for what it was supposed to go for. Not the best, though. Not the best one on this album. But so far, I'm kind of feeling confident on this one. So let's go to the next one, which was Never Going Back. The keyboard intro from Corey is something that sounds really wacky, but it really hits your ears well, and then the song just hits you hard. I do like this track. It's aggressive, fits the theme. You got Seth's guitar work. It does have a little bit of a harsher the sound of the guitar work when it comes to that, but then it mixes well with John's. He goes a little bit harsher on the vocals on this one. Again, the mix makes it work well, and the thing I really like about it is it makes you want to get up and not stand for the sedentary life, which is something I really don't care to do, is sit around and be sedentary. So this was something I was a big fan of. Did like Never Going Back. Reach was, in terms of the song construction of it, it had some pop rock influence to it, which I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of. The rapid guitars, another driving drum beat that it had on this one. Yeah, big fan. Big fan of it. The message behind it was actually from Corey Cooper, where they were talking about a woman that Corey Cooper knew, or I'm not sure where it was, but who had cancer and no one to turn to, and Corey was helping her through it, and then she found God by reaching out to him. So this is what that song is about. I actually like how that theme and the sound of it work together, because the sound sounds like you're running out of time. It sounds like you're not going to make it, but you are. So it gives you that extra boost of energy and adrenaline. One of the last singles I haven't talked about yet is Anchor. This is the third single off the album. This comes in at number 10 on the album. It definitely is much more faith-based. It's a lot slower. It's a lot more melodic. There is not a lot going on outside of John Cooper's vocals here. It does have very high potential to be a wedding song, folks. Let me tell you that. I can definitely see a lot of people out there dancing to the song as their first wedding dance. It's something that could easily happen. The piano intro is where it kind of gets you in, because it's like, oh, this is completely different from the rest of the album. It was completely different as a single as well. I'm glad they only stuck with one kind of song on this. Now, again, the biggest part about this song was John Cooper's vocals, especially in the chorus when they hit that, in angry oceans, you never broke it through every wave of the storm. When he hits that through every wave of the storm, he hits it in a little bit of a different tone, a little bit more of a higher, cringier pitch, I would say. And I don't want to say cringy in a bad way, but it's like cringy in a good way, which is really weird. Gives it an incredibly powerful feel. I do like the track, because I have come back to it more and more. But I wish that Jen would have been prominently featured on this one. That mixture could have done so well like it did on Watching for Comets. Last two, here we go. Finish Line at number 11. I looked at this one, and it has this Memphis-y, bluesy influence to it, which is from John Cooper's upbringing in Memphis, Tennessee. And I am very welcome to this type of experimentation to a harder Skillet sound. It really drove you into it. It has that marching feel. And that's where the instrumentation is minimal too. It lets John really focus in hard on his vocals, but the instrumentation does have that bluesy riff to it, and it works. This one really works. It's very anthemic. But there's one issue I have with it, and it's just Jen Ledger's drumming. It should be more prominent on this one. It should be a little bit harder and heavier, but that's just my take on it. And last, we have Back to Life. This song kind of brings everything all in there with sounding more hopeful, where it's like, you're living life with a purpose. Don't live life, and you're on someone else's term, live life with a purpose. It does sound like, my opinion was it looks like John and Seth took something for Fight the Fury, which is their side project, and slowed it down just a little bit to make a Skillet song. Seth has a solo in this one that's a little bit more simplistic, but it really does work well. And this one did remind me a lot of The Resistance, especially with the outro at the end of the album, because it really kicked it up, and it was something I really enjoyed. It was something that got you going towards the end, and I was a fan of it. Now, overall, what would I give the album? Out of 10, if you looked at the YouTube video, I'm not going to change from it. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. I do like I said, I absolutely love the fact they went with a harder sound on this album. I really do enjoy that because that's always that's what I was hoping for. I think that a big part of that was the mixing that Corey and John did with came to producing this one, because they had a lot of a higher influence on this one. And again, the album does sound more hopeful and uplifting, more like it's on you to go forward and make your life happen. I really dislike This Is the Kingdom. That was kind of like the one big bugaboo that I had on this album. And I think this honestly is their best album to date. I think it is better than Comatose from my standpoint, because again, I really do like that harder sound. And I did a band rate review on Skillet, and I had him at like a 6.5, and this totally brought him up a full point. So I was big on this album. Not gonna lie, I was big on this album. And I knew there were people that weren't going to be, and one person who I knew was not going to be big on this album was John from ARTV. You can find him on YouTube. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm going to go full into... I watched it before I shot this and right when John came out with it, because John is one of, if not the prominent, like, solo rock music influencer on YouTube. He's huge with it, and I do enjoy his stuff. Don't get me wrong. One thing I've always enjoyed when it's come to John from ARTV is, especially with his reviews, he has never, ever pulled any punches. He's always honest with what he thinks, and that's what we go for as well. We always want to hear your opinion. We want to hear it, because how else are we going to get anywhere if you're going to try and sugarcoat it? So I wanted to see what John had to say about it before potentially, being like, what the hell is he talking about? Because I did see in the comments there are a lot of people that agree with him and a lot of panheads that were like, oh, this is horrible. I'm not even sure if they watched it. So I watched the review, and to John's credit, not John Cooper, to John from ARTV. John from ARTV, to your credit, I do applaud you, because you went full in on this and you talked exactly what you liked, what you disliked. You disliked a good amount of it. And I can see a lot of the points you're making due to the fact that you have always kind of stood firm on Skillet, where you like some of their stuff in the past, but not a lot recently. And I do see where you say this album can kind of get really repetitive at points and not really stand out, because the songs all have that harder, consistent feel. Again, that's something I am a big fan of, and I think that was a move that they made was correct. I know you said that basically wasn't correct, but again, I can see where you're coming from with it, because and I'm not bashing your review at all. John ended up giving it a 1.5 out of 10, 5 stars, so that'd be a 3 out of 10. Him and I are completely on the opposite ends of the spectrum on this one, but again, I liked what he did. He gave context to everything that he said. And even in giving a album review that him and I completely disagreed on, I do respect his opinion and listening to it, because I don't want to give it all away, but you guys can go watch it. ARTV, you can find it. He goes in deep with what he thinks on the album, and he just gives it to you full force. And he doesn't pull any punches, and he's completely honest. So I applaud him for that. And if he ever listens to this, if I ever, I hope saying gonna say when, because I'm really working towards it, but get big enough, and if we want to do like an album review collab, totally into it, because I love watching this guy's stuff. He does not pull any punches and is always honest, so we'll see what happens there. But that's the kind of reviews, these are kind of the reviews that we need to see, is the ones where it's no matter what, you're going to give your honest opinion, and of course there are people that are going to agree with you, people that are going to completely disagree with you. I think there are some more of the panheads that are going to agree on my end than on his end. However, you got to respect both reviews, because we are both coming from a place of complete and utter honesty on what we thought of the album, and we did give context to what we liked about each song or in each part of the album. So again, John from ARTV, even though we disagreed on the review, big thumbs up to you. One other person that I saw, oh boy, now this one was something else. And the reason I bring it up is because I was on Twitter, I think the day the Skillet's album review came out. And of course, I'm looking at this stuff, just seeing what they're saying. And there was one that completely threw me off, and it was because it was a huge back and forth between this one guy and John Cooper. So on the website Jesus Freak Hideout, they reviewed Skillet's Victorious album and they gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. Now, I've read the review, I've got it pulled up right now, and they do go in a little bit heavier on some of these things, but on some of them, they really don't. They don't give a lot of context. Like, I disagree with when they say, because this is Jesus Freak Hideout. This is the Kingdom is one of the album's best tracks with an original created melody and worshipful lyrics, and they put the lyrics in there, and I just would like to see more of the context on why they like it. Why do they think about the melody? Is it original? Why do they think it's creative? They go, Save Me and Rise are both standard Skillet fare with neither offering particularly memorable, and both are feeling like a retreading on old ground. I can kind of see we're coming with the retreading on old ground, but I do think they stand out a lot more than what they think they do. But I would like to see the context on why they don't. I think they give a little context. So this is kind of the end of it, and I'm just going to give you, because it was written by David Kraft of Jesus Freak Hideout. This is how he said it at the end. Word for word, as a fan who once loved Skillet, I feel obligated to detail the disappointment felt by the band's recent albums. When examining the band as experienced, popular, and well-funded as Skillet, no punches can be pulled. At this point, the band members seem like to be stuck on recreating Comatose, and in doing so, they cheat themselves of their own creative future. The continual content focus on heroes rising in personal greatness and overcoming ambiguous obstacles opposition grows more stagnant with each subsequent release. Victorious isn't a bad album, but it represents so little of what the band could be. Thankfully, there are a few gems in here, and in the band's focus on more experimentation, lyrical improvement, I truly believe that it can once more be one of the greats. Until then, this album will certainly satisfy current panheads, although new listeners would be better off starting out with a few tracks back. David Kraft, when it came down to like the review of the songs, bud, I would have liked some more context, but when you're kind of giving me your honest opinion on it at that last part, yeah, I can see where you're coming from, and I'm gonna give you a thumbs up on that one as well. But one of the guys that I think does he work there? Let me quickly check. Yeah, staff writer for Jesus Freak Hideout, Chase Tremaine. So him and John Cooper had this back and forth on Twitter, and I went through and was looking at it, and I gotta take a look at some of this stuff, because he took a comment that I think that Chase put out there saying not to put words in anyone's mouths, but I believe any of our staffers could list off plenty more Christian artists that we find more worthy in notoriety and influence that Skillet has achieved. And to be frank, I can say simply that as Chase, not behalf of anyone else, that modern rock and hard rock arenas in which Skillet have found their fame and success is a really washed up area. And John Cooper kind of called him out, just asking like a little bit further about the point, and Chase kind of said, "Hey John, I appreciate you reading my comment. Honestly, not trying to put a damper on your release day. I'm not looking to be an enemy to your band or your fan base. The point I was trying to make is that there are other artists we wish were as popular as y'all." And I'm like, wait, that's not nowhere near the point that this guy was trying to make. That did not sound anything like this point I was trying to make, and Cooper called him out on it. And Chase asked him, what point do you think I was making? And John said, that you say that Skillet finds success in a genre is of washed-up acts that don't have good songwriters, and kind of goes into a little bit deeper. But one thing I saw from another one on this whole entire thread was talking about how we can always artists like this, they can handle the negative feedback. They can. They're big boys or big girls. They can handle the negative feedback. But the one problem that they had, and the one problem that I totally agree on, is something like, God, how do I put it this way? Let me put it the proper way. We can all have positive reviews, we can all have negative reviews, we can all have our own opinions. But when someone has a different opinion than you, talk to them about it. See what they say. And that guy Chase, after a while, like I saw some of his comments, and he was more trying to persuade people and show people like you should think what I think because of I'm right and you're wrong kind of thing. When you try and do that, when you're trying to change people's opinions by like saying you're wrong and force them to, they're gonna end up just diving deeper into their own opinions. I mean, take a look at what happened with my story when it came to why I really disliked that standard Christian rock sound. It was because my teachers back in middle school were forcing that down my throat and telling me that what I was listening to was bad. I'm listening to Disturbed, and I'm not stopping. So taking a look at that, again, it's just, we all have different opinions. Can we share those? And on our channel, on our page, on everything, we want to hear your opinions. But if you're going to end up having a conflict with someone about opinions, well, this is what we try and do, and this is what we want to see from everyone else. It's talk about them. Get the context behind your opinions, which is why I like John from ARTV, even though we completely disagree on this review. I loved his review because he gave context behind everything he said. And he really went deep dive into it, and there's nothing I can say against it. Him and I are going to disagree on this album, but that is totally fine. It happens. But just don't try and force your opinions down someone's throat because it's just bad. Alrighty, enough with that, because there's another one that came out. I'm going to go through this one a little bit different. I'm going to go through Volbeat's Rewind, Replay, Rebound. This also came out on August 2nd, and after listening to it, I listened to it one time through, and I'm not going to lie. This is what I was thinking. Beginning, song number 1. Hey, this is alrighty. Song number 2. Okay, let's see where they go here. The song 3, 4, yeah! All of a sudden, song 5 and 6 starting to kind of just go down a little bit. Once I heard Cheapside Sloggers come in, I'm like, yeah, here we go. And then it just, not the biggest fan of Rewind, Replay, Rebound, to put it that way. So let me give you my whole entire aspect when I was listening to this album, when I was coming up with the review. Again, you can see the whole review on YouTube on Wednesday. And I did go deeper into Skills because I wanted to go deeper into Skills, so I'm not going to go as deep into Volbeats. But I feel like it is necessary to go deep into it still. So when I first listened to the album, I was kind of big on it through the first couple of tracks. I'm like, I like what they're doing here. They're taking their classic Volbeat Danish rock sound, and they're experimenting it with certain things that really do work here, and it doesn't seem like they're completely overdoing it. I was pretty sick and tired of this album by song number 7. And that's only halfway through the album. So I'm like, how am I sick and tired of this halfway through the album? And I looked at the second half of the album, so songs 8 through 14, and they had 3 of the singles from the album that were on this in the second half. So I got rather nervous due to the fact that I knew part of what was coming, but I didn't know what the rest was. And hearing the way this album was going, it just, okay, I'm a little nervous. Well, of course, Cheapside Sloggers hits. Cheapside Sloggers is the best song on this album. Gary Holt is his name? Yeah, Gary Holt is a feature on this with a nice Slayer guitar. It is a rather great compilation, rather great mixture of the two, and I'm pretty pleased at what they did here. It's a song I actually started really drinking to. Like, it's like, hey, this is one of my favorite drinking songs now. It has that drive. I really like it. But then as the rest of the album goes on, outside of the single, so I'm not including Parasite, not including Leviathan, I'm talking about the other songs that are on the second half of the album that weren't singles. One name came to mind. One name. John Hughes. So for those of you who don't know who John Hughes is, John Hughes was a movie director back in the 80s or early 90s. I don't remember when he died. I think it might have been late 90s, early 2000s. But he's responsible for a lot of movies that, were very big in the culture at some point during that time. So let me quickly look up what I can find from John Hughes just to give you guys, I know some of these, but just to give you guys a little bit of a context behind what movies he made and directed. Because, again, you guys are probably going to want to hear some of that. We'll see what happens. So let's take a look at new movies that he's known for. So according to IMDb, we've got The Breakfast Club, which of course, yeah, people know The Breakfast Club. Planes, Trains, Automobiles with Steve Martin and John Candy. Love that movie. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, another good one. Let's see what else we have. I think Uncle Buck is in there. Uncle Buck should be in there. Yeah, Uncle Buck is in there. The Great Outdoors. He's was part of the National Lampoon movies. Had parts in Home Alone. Let's see some of the other ones we've seen. Pretty in Pink, there's another one that you can call out, 16 Candles. So you kind of get the idea of where I'm coming from. And the reason why I really started disliking the album towards the end, especially at like halfway through and then towards the end, was because all the songs had this 80s and like 80s, early 90s rock, soft rock kind of influence that sounded like all these songs sounded like they sound like on a soundtrack in a John Hughes movie. Songs like Cloud 9 has this like Bryan Adams style influence to it from Volbeat. And again, it sounds like it should be in a John Hughes movie. Maybe I Believe is another one like that. Along with The Awakening of Bonnie Parker, The Everlasting is a little bit different. And then 724 goes fully into it. And 724, I kind of find it funny at the end of the song because it sounds like a song that should be at the end of a John Hughes movie. So I'm like, and the album and the John Hughes movie. That's kind of funny. Otherwise, some of the experimentation they did in there, like When We Were Kids, they kind of gave like a Hootie and the Blowfish kind of vibe, which I was not necessarily a big fan of, just because of the way the vocal sounded, and I kind of could see him like, oh, it sounds like Michael Poulsen is trying to do his best Darius Rucker. And then Sorry Sack of Bones, it sounded like they wanted to mix a Dick Dale surfer guitar sound with a driving style of a drum beat like Paranoid by Black Sabbath. And it's interesting. I'm not going to lie. It just doesn't work. Or Pelvis on Fire, which was a single. They really went full into like Elvis rockabilly influence and swing. Now, don't get me wrong. I do know that Volbeat takes a lot of influence from Elvis. So I could see they're kind of trying to go with a sort of tribute, song for Elvis. Calling it Pelvis on Fire. Come on, that's pretty simple. Otherwise, everything was just way, way too far off. It just, oh my God. I don't know about it. But what did I like about this album? Because I really started having a distaste for this album. Even with the length of it, too. It felt like the last 3 songs they should have just completely cut off the record, including The Awakening of Bonnie Parker, though I like how they kind of had this movement between there where the lyrics were about writing letters between Bonnie and Clyde, which I thought was a cool idea. But when it sounds like they took an influence off of Manic Monday by the Bangles, like, come on, guys. Just did not work for this one. And it got really tiresome as the album went on. But taking a look at what I liked about this album, outside of Pelvis on Fire, I did enjoy the singles. Last Day Under the Sun had a kind of cool 90s rock vibe to it as it drove on, and an intro similar to Rock and Roll Train by AC/DC, a song that came off of their Black Ice album back in, I believe, 2008. So it kind of had that upbeat tempo to it for a message of, just don't take anything for granted. Rewind the Exit was the song that I'm like, okay, this does have like an 80s rock vibe to it, but it was like Van Halen with Sammy Hagar rock vibe to it, which I grew up listening to that stuff. I remember like the first song, whenever my dad would like crank up the music and crank up his stereo in the basement with my brother and myself, and I was like 2 years old, we'd air guitar. The first song was always The Dream Is Over by Van Halen with Sammy Hagar's Van Halen. I loved it. I actually loved kind of the influence and the experimentation on that track. Die to Live was another one that was really interesting, where it kind of took that Pelvis on Fire motive. Instead of going with Elvis, they kind of took influence from what I thought was like Jerry Lee Lewis, listening to the vocal pattern and then just the piano riffs that were in the middle of it. It felt like it was something straight out of 1950s rock and roll. And mixed with the Volbeat sound, this one really worked well. It really did. I've kind of talked a little bit already about Cheapside Sloggers. I really do like the song. When they came out with Parasite as the lead single, yeah, it was really interesting because it was like 38 seconds, made really no sense. It kind of went all punk and pop punk vibe. It was cool. And then Leviathan. Leviathan is just that classic driving Volbeat sound, and I'm a big fan of Volbeat not Volbeat. I'm a big fan of Leviathan because it just is like, okay, this is for all the fans that really like that Volbeat sound. Here you go. This is Leviathan. It works. So what was my rating on it? After listening to it at the beginning, I'm like, okay, I'm like thinking like an 8 to start out. After I listened to the the first 4 songs. So after I'm like, okay, Last Day Under the Sun, then Pelvis on Fire, and then Rewind, The Exit, and Die to Live. Alrighty. And I knew what the singles were going to be like. So I'm like, okay, this could be a good one. But then as it went on, I'm like, okay, now 7.5, now 6, now 5. Oh my God, should it go down lower than this? But no, I'm sticking with Volbeat's Rewind, Replay, Rebound at a 5 out of 10. So I liked what they did with some of the experimentation when it was different. But when they really went that John Hughes 1980s soft rock kind of sound that sounded like it should be in a John Hughes movie soundtrack, oh my God. It just took so much out of it. It was exhausting. And I got tired of it by the time Leviathan ended at song number 11. I had 3 more to go, and that's what I got was more John Hughes stuff. I'm just thinking, guys, you had an interesting experimentation going at the beginning of this. Why didn't you keep it up? It didn't really make much sense to me. I was not necessarily feeling it at all, and it's tough to really get into, guys. I am sorry. It just really is. I can't really deal with much of it, but it's not the best Volbeat album. It's not. It really isn't. But I've heard worse this year. I've heard a lot worse this year. The silver lining I will give everybody, all you Volbeat fans, is I'm going to look at Michael Poulsen. His vocals on this never wavered. They were spot on at everything he did. So the vocals on this track from Michael Poulsen, mwah, beautiful. A lot of that experimentation, though, it got so tired and stale, I couldn't stand it after a while. So some of you Volbeat fans might be like, Kevin, you totally got this wrong. Tell me what you guys think about this album. I want to hear about it. I really do, because I want to hear what you guys have to say. Especially because, well, we had the Skillet album, we had Volbeat's album. I know I'm going to probably hear more from Skillet fans in this one. But as time goes on throughout the rest of the year, we have a plethora of albums where there are going to be some fan bases where we'll see what happens. And one of them is next week when later this week when Slipknot releases We Are Not Your Kind. That's going to be one that's going to tear a lot of people apart, along with when Tool releases their new album. I cannot remember the name of it, but I know Maynard James Keenan said it on the Joe Rogan podcast. I had to listen to it because, well, I wanted to hear more about Tool, and all they pretty much talked about was Maynard James Keenan's winery and vineyard. They did talk about Tool for like 5-10 minutes, though, which was cool. I'll jump into that a little bit later. But then also we've got bands like Chord coming out with an album, bands like Sleeping with Sirens, which that one I'm really bullish on right now, but we'll get to that in September. Alter Bridge, and I think the one I'm looking forward to right now the most out of the rest of the year, does not have a release date, but it will come up by the end of the year, is Saint Asonia, due to the fact that I really do enjoy Adam Gantier's work. Now, let's jump into something I actually saw while scrolling through here, and looks like Ben Burnley of Breaking Benjamin is looking into a side project. Interesting. What would that include? Say, Lacey Sturm, ex-Flyleaf singer, and Skillet fill-in now? I'd love to see what these two would do together. I would really like to see what these two would do together. I'm finding this on blabbermouth.net, saying Ben Burnley, he would love to do a collaboration with Lacey Sturm on a new project. And I know that there's a lot of collaboration going on with Breaking Benjamin, as Adam Gantier is doing a track with them. So we'll see what that happens. They might just be Lacey Sturm doing like a track or two with them on their new album. It'd be really cool to see that, though, because Breaking Benjamin really have never really done anything like on a big feature. I know Blow Me Away did something like that, but I really like Blow Me Away when they do it singly, when it's just them, when it's not anybody else, when it's just Breaking Benjamin. Is it Blow Me Away? If I got that wrong, then I'm going to be talking for like a minute, and I'm like, oh man. It is Blow Me Away. I like their version of it not without the feature. But they never really did anything when it comes to, having other people like featured on there. So if they're going to bring in Adam Gontier and they bring in Lacey Sturm, yeah, then that's something that's good. So we'll see if they do like a side project together, or we'll see if they just do something within Breaking Benjamin. One other big thing that happened on Friday, August 2nd was we're going to go back to Tool. Not Tool time. This ain't Tool time. So we're going to go Tool. And they put all of their albums out and all their music out on digital platforms. So when they put it on digital platforms, they put it on iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere. And people are surprised that they crack like the top 10. All their albums crack the top 10. Well, no shit, all their albums crack the top 10. This is the first time that people who have listened to Tool forever can now get their stuff on digital very easily and stream it. So are they going to listen to it? Of course they're going to listen to it. Of course it's going to crack the top 10 on everything. And Tool's albums are probably going to be in the top 10 for the next month, month and a half, 2 months, especially when they release the new album. It's going to happen. And I am totally here for it due to the fact that it's great to see Tool. I mean, take a look at this. Like, top songs on iTunes as of, you know what? Screw it. Why am I saying as of blank? Let's go look at right now. So this is as of when I'm recording it. Let's take a peeker top songs. Oh, it looks like they've kind of fallen off from Friday. Because on Friday they had like 6 of them or 7 of them. Now they've got Sober, Schism, 46 and 2, and Stinkfist. So, yeah, and then top album, let's see. Yep, they're still on top with Anima. Then you got Lateralis, I'm not going to say it. Undertow, 10,000 Days, and the Opiate EP. Take a look at top albums, though, as of right now. I'm looking at this. Take a look at this. You got Tool, Drake, a Disney thing, Tool, Tyler Childress, Tool, Skillet, Volbeat. Yeah, that's how it should be. So looking forward to all that as well. And of course, like I said, next week we get We Are Not Your Kind. That's definitely going to jump in there as well. Looking forward to that. Do I have really anything else for you guys at this point? Not really, because again, solo. I went through Skillet's album and really went deep into that one. Gave you guys my full opinion of Skillet and Volbeat's album. Would love to hear yours and talked a little bit about Tool. So, just to give you guys a little bit of a precursor for next week, unfortunately, there will be no podcast where we really deep dive into Slipknot's new album, We Are Not Your Kind. But let me tell you the reason why. So, if any of you guys have been paying attention to what's going on with us on Instagram, I've been talking about 30 Seconds to Mars is a good deal for a long time. Mostly on Thursdays, trying to get licensed for them, because I do like the band. You guys know I like the band. You know I do not really like their newest album. I thought it was one of the worst albums of the year from 2018. I thought it was the worst one. I really didn't like it. And I wasn't going to pull any punches for a band I actually really do enjoy. But over the next week, I'm going to be in Croatia. Because they're doing their Camp Mars Island thing out there, and who's going to it? This guy is! So we're doing a lot of stuff out there, and I'm not going to have all my stuff with me do a podcast out there. So I'm not going to go on and full-on record a do a Slipknot We Are Not Your Kind one. I will do an album review, though, because I'm just going to I'm not going to do one that's going to be as, like, high quality in terms of video quality on our YouTube channel, just due to the fact that I have to, take a webcam to do it instead of my point and shoot cam. So it's not going to necessarily be as high quality in terms of video quality, but the content will be there for sure. So next week you're going to get a cool little podcast project I've been thinking about, so you'll see what happens there. But then the week after that, we're going to go full into what I experienced on Mars Island, along with the new Killswitch Engage album, which comes out in a week and a half when this album releases. So we're going to go into that as well in 2 weeks. Looking forward to all of that as well, so make sure to follow us on Instagram specifically for the Mars Island stuff if you are a 30 Seconds to Mars fan, due to the fact that there's a lot of stuff going on there, and you guys are going to want to see also the kind of the crazy stuff I get into. And maybe even when I go to Amsterdam too, because I'm also going there, so that'll be fun. One other thing before we go, I got a lot of good concerts coming up to go see, so we're going to see how many of these I can actually pull off, but I want to see what you guys' take on it. So this is what I've got scheduled for the rest of the year up to this point. Got the Camp Mars stuff, or the Mars Island stuff, so that's 2 30 Seconds to Mars concerts. I've got Pennywise and Anti-Flag. I've got Riot Fest in Chicago, which the sole purpose is to see Rise Against, but if Slayer's going to play on the same day, I'm going to go see Slayer too. Not just Slayer, but not just Rise Against. I'm going to see them both. But if I have to pick one or the other, I'm still going to go see Rise Against. My favorite band, what can you say? The Fever 333 has announced they'll be coming to Madison, Wisconsin. And I bought my ass a ticket because I gotta go see those guys. I've talked about them enough, and I gotta go see them. Their Strength in Numbers album was an absolute bombshell this year. It dropped, and it was huge, in my opinion. I loved it. And by bombshell, I mean good bombshell. Like, boom, it just blew up on the scene. I'm also still trying to get tickets to go see Skillet and Alter Bridge in Chicago in October, and then I get to see In This Moment again because they're opening up for a band. I get to see it again. I get to see Disturbed again. Oh, yeah, I can't do the oh-wahs. I will probably kill myself trying to try and do that because I will blow out my voice. That is not good. That is not good, ladies and gentlemen. So, well, that's it for this week's edition of the Chord Progression Podcast, brought to you by My Song a Day Rock 2000 Today, the best rock community on the internet. Want to hear what you have to say about the Skillet album and the Volbeat album, along with what you expect from Tool as well. Wish me luck in Croatia, guys, because we'll see what kind of crazy crap I get into music-wise, and we'll see if I get to boop Jared Leto on the nose. Something from last year. Tried booping on the nose. I said I was going to. Didn't get a chance. This year, we're making it happen. Woo! Alrighty, so thanks for listening to the Chord Progression Podcast, brought to you by My Song a Day Rock 2000 Day. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end all my podcasts and stuff like this with a wholehearty see y'all.